Carl's decided to switch things up. Nick and I have been doing some combat training with him. If anyone's wondering how that's going, Nick got his shoulder dislocated and now I have a black eye. How fast Carl moves is insane. Then again, he has had lots of combat experience, so I shouldn't be surprised. Enough of that though, I'll pick up where I left off. The face in the sky, along with the words, were only there for a moment or two. Then the stars reshaped themselves again, returning to normal. None of us said anything as we were going down the road with Carl back at the wheel. Eventually, the silence became too much for me. I broke it with a pretty straightforward question. Does anyone have any idea what the fuck that was? No clue, Nick replied. Yeah, I figured. I'm not sure I even want to know. Anyway, what did you guys see in the diner? Well, the first thing that tipped us off was that there was something wrong about the conversation that we overheard the two truckers having, Carl said. We overheard them talking about how President Reagan was doing. Reagan? Wasn't he president in the 80s? Yeah, for almost all of it. He died in 2004, so as you can imagine, we found it odd that they were discussing him as though not only still alive, but president as well. We just thought maybe they were crazy. What was the second thing? I can answer that, Nick said. He told me that the waitress brought out the food, and according to him and Carl, it looked as good as it smelled. He was getting up to go get me when he accidentally knocked his coffee mug off the table. It went straight through the waitress, he continued. So she was like the trucker. Yeah, the cup shattered on the floor and she just stood there, smiling at us. Shit hit the fan after that, Carl said. That woman went from zero to psycho in the blink of an eye. They tried to leave right away, and she began shrieking. She told them that they couldn't leave now that they knew their secret. Everyone's face started melting off in there. Then they tried to hit us by making shit float around, Nick said. It was fucked up. Holy shit, I said. How did you guys escape without getting hurt? It was actually pretty easy, Carl said. A pitcher ended up breaking the window right by our booth and we jumped out of it. Oh, they didn't go after you guys? They did, but something scared them into going back inside. The arm? Probably. They looked terrified. They must have sensed it because they said it was hungry. So it keeps them there until it needs to feed. Apparently so, and maybe the food there was a way to trap people. Now that you mention it, the scent did seem almost supernaturally good. If that was the case, I'm glad none of us ate there. I wonder where the truckers I saw get pulled into that trailer ended up. Nowhere we'd want to be. I think that's the safe bet. Agreed. Do you guys mind if I get a little shut-eye? They told me they'd be fine if I did, so I closed my eyes. Other than a vivid dream of that hand dragging me screaming into the trailer, I slept pretty well. It was good not having to deal with any agents chasing us or paranormal dangers, at least over the next week. When something did happen again, it was a place that specialized in mental torture brought on by pure boredom. I am, of course, talking about a high school. I think we're about to get some rain, Nick said, noticing the dark clouds that had accumulated in the sky. I prefer to think of it as a free car wash, Carl said. Did anyone else just notice that flash of lightning? I asked. Another flash appeared in the sky. Then we heard the boom of thunder and the cracking noise of wood splitting apart. A tree, having been hit by lightning, fell to the road, flaming. Oh shit, Nick yelled, slamming on the brakes. The car stopped only an inch from the tree's base. He backed up so the fire wouldn't be a problem. "What now?" he asked once the car was a safe distance away. "We'll have to take another route," Carl said. Guys," I said, feeling my eyes widen. I pointed out my window. Approaching us from far off in the distance and uprooting trees as it did was a large tornado. "Jesus Christ," Nick said. "Look at the size of that thing." "Drive, fucking drive," Carl yelled. Nick turned the car around, attempting to speed away from the area. "It's no good," I said, seeing it was quickly catching up to us. "We've got to find shelter." "But where?" Nick asked. "I don't see any buildings." For a moment, it appears as if we'd be unable to escape the tornado. Then I spotted it. Poking over the trees was the school's flagpole. I pointed it out, and Nick drove in that direction. He parked by the sidewalk. Then we got out and went to the doors. "They're locked," Nick said, tugging on the double doors. "Stand back," Carl told him, drawing his pistol and shooting out one of the windows. He reached into it to open the door from the inside. While he was doing this, I leaned against the other set of doors and ended up losing my balance. I managed to keep from falling by grabbing onto one of the handles, which pulled the door open. Nick and Carl noticed this. The latter of the two seemed to mentally curse at himself. "Do you think we should see if the school has a basement?" I asked. "That might take too long," Carl replied. "We should take cover in one of the classrooms." "This is reminding me of the tornado drills we did in school," Nick said. "Maybe we should try ducking and covering." "Oh, sure, that'll keep us from getting crushed by debris," I responded. "Wait, guys, I think I see the door going to the stairs." Carl pointed to the end of the hall. Even though it was hard to see, we could make out the stairs through the windows of the double doors. Although we weren't sure if they led downstairs, we knew that it wouldn't take long for the tornado to reach the school. My arms and good leg burned by the time we reached the doors. Thankfully, the school turned out to have a basement. "That tornado's getting close," I said, hearing its rumble. "Good thing you spotted this, Carl, or else we'd be..." My crutches slipped on the first step, causing me to fall down, sliding down the stairs. I stopped when my feet hit the doors at the bottom. I lay there, groaning in pain. "Pete, I know this was a dumb question, but are you okay?" Nick asked. "I've been better. Can you guys get my crutches for me?" I used the railing to pull myself back up. If I had to come up with one good thing about having to use my crutches, it's that they made my arms stronger. I thanked Carl and Nick when they handed me my crutches. Then we went through the doors. "There's a whole nother wing down here," Nick commented. Classroom entrances covered the walls. "Huh. I wonder why nobody else thought to take shelter here," I said. "Maybe it's just too far," Carl shrugged. "Whatever the reason, we can stay here until this blows over. Hopefully the car is still in one piece when we leave." I snickered at Carl's unintentional pun and leaned back against the wall. Aside from the howling winds outside, the next few minutes were filled with silence. "Guys," I said, prompting them to look at me, "does the hall seem different to you somehow?" I couldn't put my finger on it. Something definitely felt changed about the area. Nick was the one who realized what it was. "I think there's an extra door," he told us. We stared at them and came to the realization that an extra one had appeared. It was on the left side at the end of the hall. "Maybe we just missed it somehow?" I said, glancing around the room and then feeling my chest tighten. "Guys." Carl and Nick looked where I had been. The door we came through was missing. Nick ran to where it was. "What happened to it?" he asked, feeling the now smooth wall. I know for sure we didn't hear anything shift around us. At that moment, we had a collective realization, and it didn't give us good vibes. If the door missing wasn't enough of a bad omen, the noise of the tornado had stopped, as though it was never there. Okay, if this is being caused by what we think it is, where do we go from here? Nick continued. I mean, we don't seem to be in danger, but that could change really quick. Well, I think the only thing we can do is try to find another way out of this place, Carl said. Make sure to stay close. I was the one who looked into the first room by peeking through its window. Do you see anything? Nick asked me. It's too dark to make out anything, I replied, pressing my eyes right against the glass. Wait, I think I can see something moving. When I realized what I was looking at, I immediately pulled away from the door. Carl and Nick took notice of my wide eyes and heavy breathing. Pete, what did you see in there? Carl asked. Oh, not much. Desks, some scissors, a ruler, the ghost of a girl with her eyes gouged out. Wait, what was that last one? Nick inquired. I repeated the last thing I said to him. Then he and Carl glanced over at the window. The girl I had seen was now shuffling towards the door. Low moans escaped her as she reached for the knob, turning it. Oh, no you don't, Carl said, taking out a large pack of salt and spreading a line in front of the door. When the girl opened the door, she was unable to pass it. She hissed at the salt line, slowly backing away from it. I was relieved it actually worked. Carl, why do you carry that on you? I asked. Too many unsalted soft pretzels. Now, come on. What we saw in the other rooms wasn't any better. They contained classes full of students who had their eyes gouged out like the girl, their jaws ripped off, or both. Some seemed to have been burned alive, as indicated by how charred their bodies looked. It was truly one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen. I try not to think about what they would have done if they could have gotten a hold of us. The second to last door contained a man. Based on his uniform, we figured he was once the school janitor. His mouth hung open, unnaturally wide. In the back of it was a small hole. Behind him were more people. Some were teachers, others were most likely parents. We even saw a cop among them. What they all shared in common was having a bullet wound through part of their heads. When the janitor noticed us, his mouth curved into an unsettling smile. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that this creepy bastard was responsible for the deaths here, I said. All of them? Nick asked. How? He was probably a serial killer, Carl told him, sprinkling another line of salt under the door. As he did, I kept staring at him and his victims. A horrifying realization came over me. Guys, do you notice anything else off about their bodies? They peeked back through the window. Oh my God, Nick said. Were parts of them eaten by him? It would seem that way, Carl replied with a grim expression. The sooner we get out of here, the better. The last door, which happened to be unusually far away from the others, differed from the rest. For one, it didn't have a window. For another, it seemed really out of place. It was the kind of door that would normally be found in a home, not a school, unless someone's home was their school. Aside from that exception, though it stuck out like a sore thumb, we knew that if any of the other doors were an indication, what was behind that one wouldn't be good. So which one of you guys is going to check it? I asked. I would if it weren't for my bad leg. The only way to see into the room was to try and peek through the gap that separated the door from the floor. Nick peeked underneath it after Carl put a line of salt in front of the door. It's too dark to see anything, he informed us. Carl, You wouldn't happen to have a flashlight, would you? Of course. Carl handed it to him, and he shone its light underneath the door's gap. I still can't see anything. What gives? Wait. Nick's eyes grew wide as he backed away from the door. What did you see? I asked him, concerned at his reaction. Something dark and scaly. It was like it was absorbing light. Based on his expression and what he was saying, we knew that whatever was behind that door was far more dangerous than what we'd seen in any of the other rooms. What should we do? Nick asked. Truth be told, we didn't have the faintest idea of how to get out of there. Our next course of action was decided for us. Suddenly, the door swung open. On the other side of it was a mouth too big to fit through it. What in the fuck? I said, backing away from the door. The only thing as horrifying as its appearance was how foul its breath smelled, which it let out with a deafening roar, causing us to cover our ears. It smelled like someone had sealed away a skunk that died shitting itself. Then someone else uncovered it thousands or maybe even millions of years later. After roaring, it just smiled. Then the door closed and vanished. Are you guys all right? Carl asked us. Yeah, I said, but I hope this ringing in my ears goes away soon. Nick was about to say something as well when he looked behind us. Upon doing so, his words caught in his throat. Nick, what's wrong? Carl asked. Behind you, Nick managed to choke out, pointing. Following his gaze showed us the reason for his panic and made us panic as well. The creature's breath had blown away all the salt lines in front of the doors, allowing the ghost to come out of the classrooms and into the hall. Quick, Carl, I said, put some salt in front of us. Already on it, he replied, rummaging through his salt pack, only for his eyes to grow wide as he faced me. Pete, I'm out of salt. I'll have to leave things off here. With these training drills, I need all the rest I can get. Anyway, I should be back next week to pick up where I left off. We'll talk to you later.